Jovanka from JovankaCiares.com, and I have a fabulous guest with me today. Her name is Kara Dansky. You'll see her right here on the screen. Hi, Kara.
Hi.
And I am inviting Kara over to our blog today because we want to talk a little bit about something that may be a little controversial. And you know how much I love talking about controversial topics. I want to, you guys know how passionate I am about all things meditation and how awesome it is to go within and to spend time in quiet contemplation. But Kara has a little bit of a twist to the idea of meditation. We're going to talk about it in a second. So before we get started with the questions, I want to talk a little bit about who Kara is, because you're wondering like, well, that's great, but who is this person next to me? Kara is a lawyer. She's also a policy analyst and an advocate. And more importantly, for this conversation especially, she's a meditation instructor with decades of experience in the non-for-profit and public sectors. She is the founder and managing director of 1000 Arms, which conducts workshops on meditation and social justice and provides nonprofit consulting services. She's been teaching meditation since 2005. And she's a certified meditation instructor and teacher with Shambhala International. Am I saying that name right?
Shambhala, yeah.
Shambhala International. So as a lawyer, Kara has been working for years in the areas of criminal and racial justice. Ta-da! This is the part that's interesting. And she's also been working a lot on things like housing rights, consumer protection, and reproductive rights. So this woman is an absolute badass, and it's important that you all get to know her. So, Kara, welcome once again.
Thank you.
So, we hear a lot, all the time, people talking about the benefits of meditation and how amazing it is. But you propose something that people might find controversial. You have a theory that meditation can address and help us move away from racism, from discrimination and eventual racism. And you're specifically asking white people to recognize potential racist thoughts and behaviors, even when they're not necessarily on purpose. So tell us a little bit about how did you come up with this theory and the theory itself?
Well, first, Jovanka, thank you so much for having me, and it's really a pleasure to be having this conversation. Yeah, so most of my professional background is in criminal justice. As you mentioned, I'm a lawyer, and I was a public defender for several years. And I really noticed, as a public defender, and before that, really how racist America's criminal justice system is. And I could say more about that if you're interested. And I've been working in criminal justice, on and off for most of the last 20 years or so. And simultaneously, I've also been doing a meditation practice and engaging on a spiritual path. And as you mentioned, becoming a meditation instructor. And it was really through my own study and professional experiences and my own meditation practice that I came to have a much deeper understanding about how, as a white person in America, which is a very white supremacist society, I myself have developed attitudes and ideas that contribute to racism in society, and I have developed a deeper understanding of how I benefit as a white person in our white supremacist society from racism and from systemic racism in particular. So at some point, in my professional career, along with my spiritual journey, I thought, why not offer meditation to other white people as a tool for really examining our own thoughts about race and racism? And it was when I decided to do that I created 1000 Arms with that idea in mind.
Right, but so the part that is really interesting to me is that we hear all the time people talk about, like, the concept of racism is really uncomfortable for people to talk about, to admit that we have racist tendencies. And it's not just white people. I mean, as a person of color, as a human, first and foremost, we all tend to have preconceived ideas about certain other types, especially when we're not exposed to the other kinds. But in the news, and we see it with the Black Lives Matter movement, and with all kinds of other things that are happening in our society in the 21st century, there is a little bit of a pushback, especially amongst the white people, saying, you know what, I'm not racist, I don't know what you're talking about, or justifying, well, maybe the reason why this is happening is because, there's a personal responsibility, which we can talk about that ad nauseum. We know that there's an issue of personal responsibility. But I guess my question is, how have this approach and this conversation been received in the white community?
So I think there's a broad range of responses. Right. And, I live in New York City, which is a very diverse place. Right. And most of the white people that I tend to know are people who are very receptive and open. Right. I think that there are a lot of white Americans who look around and see these really devastating systemic inequalities and want to do something about it, but sort of shrug their shoulders because they don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And so my answer to your question is, among the people that I have been working with, there's a lot of receptivity. Yeah. I do also think it's worth saying that there are a lot of white people in America, and we're seeing this play out in the election cycle, right, who do have a lot of ignorance and overt racist tendencies. And I think that, what we've seen over the last year in terms of the election cycle is maybe a lot more people who have overt racist ideas than a lot of us thought.
Right.
But most of the people that I work with would identify as liberal or progressive and are troubled by racism and don't understand their own role in it, but are receptive and open to working with that.
So you're obviously working with those people that are receptive, with the understanding that the people that aren't, it's going to be a little harder to get through to them and understanding what you're trying to teach. You also say that systemic discrimination and racism affect not just people of color, but white people, the white supremacy society, as you call it. Tell us a little bit about that. It's not in the same way, obviously. How so?
Yeah, and so, racism first and foremost affects people who are not considered or perceived as white. And so I want to be very clear about that the main harm has been centuries of enslavement, killing, torture of people who are not perceived as white. So that's the main harm of racism, I think. And also, racism has really put white people in a prison of not understanding who we are. And it has erased our own ancestry. So, for example, my ancestors are mainly Irish Catholics and Eastern European Jewish people. Those are two categories of people who were not considered white when they immigrated to the United States. But somehow, because of how race operates in our society, I am perceived as white. And that means that I feel very cut off from my own heritage. I also feel very cut off from the heritages of other people, right? Like, I don't know much about the ancestry of Puerto Rican people or people of African ancestry. Right. And so racism, in a very real way, disconnects white people from our own humanity, and it's devastating. It's really awful. And I just want to also go back and say that the primary victims of racism are not white people. So I just want to be clear about that.
Right. Yeah. No. I understood, and I appreciate it. And I thank you so much for that. It sounds to me that it's almost what you're talking about is the concept of worldwide citizenship. That we are all at the very end, all human. And one of the things that people that live in New York or big cities like we do, we're excited about meeting people from different cultures and backgrounds. and it makes you an even more well-rounded individual. And it seems like there's other parts of the country where, of this country at least, the United States, where people, because they don't have access to different people and different cultures, you only hear bad things or not so great things about a particular group, and then you said this particular idea, and it takes away from your own humanity, is what you, I guess, is what I'm understanding that you're saying. And it sounds to me, so I guess my question is, will exposing people be the part of the solution, like, allowing people to see how people of different colors and cultures work and behave and interact, in order to, because we all know that racism is all based on ignorance, right? We make assumptions about things, and it's all complete, most of them are completely wrong. How hard has it been for you to talk to people and tell them, because if you are white too and you're going to talk to white people, I would have to assume that it's a little, that it's not, the entire experience is not as clear, because you can't go there and tell them, let me tell you a little bit about who I am as a person of color. Or has it been a different experience?
Yeah, I mean, these conversations are often very difficult because, as you say, there's a lot of ignorance and there's also a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because most white Americans, I think this is true statistically, grow up surrounded by other white people. And as you say, are not exposed to people from different cultures.
Right.
And most of us are also, at least of my generation, most of us have been raised to believe that we are not racist.
Right.
That race doesn't matter.
Right.
And to not talk about it because it's not a, we are taught that racism is a thing of the past.
Right.
And when we talk about these issues, there's often a lot of discomfort and fear that comes up. Mm-hmm. And getting back to the original topic, that is why I really think that meditation is crucial, because meditation is a very gentle and non-judgmental way to encourage us to look at the thoughts that arise in our minds when we think about race, and also to feel that discomfort.
Right.
Right? When we meditate, we're sitting, usually on the ground, maybe in a chair, mm-hmm. and it's an opportunity to sit with and hold the discomfort that comes up. Because without meditation, when we have a conversation about race, it's really easy to shut down and be like, I'm not racist, that's not a thing, and leave the room. And with meditation, like, we're just sitting there.
Right.
We're just sitting there and feeling.
Embracing it in many ways. Embracing it too. You're essentially acknowledging the fact that these feelings are there.
Yes.
And you just, in the same vein, you've mentioned to me that there's been studies that show that sitting for just as little as just simply 7 minutes.
Yes.
In kind of like a love, kindness, contemplation, as you call it. I love that phrase. Loving kindness, contemplation can help people reduce racial bias. So have you seen this in your own experience as an educator, as an instructor?
Yeah, I've given workshops where the participants sit and receive meditation instruction and are invited to contemplate phrases that invite them to look at their own thoughts around racism, and to notice the emotions that arise when they contemplate these phrases. And people tend to report having a much deeper understanding of race and racism, having gone through this process. Yeah. And really, even taking race out of the equation, in my experience meditating and teaching meditation is among other things, a practice in developing openness and compassion.
Right.
Generally, right? For all beings.
Of course.
And so when you bring race into it, that study that I mentioned to you has demonstrated that even with 7 minutes of loving kindness meditation and contemplation, people can reduce our own racial biases.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you in a few minutes to show us how to do this. But before that, I have two more questions for you. How can we bring the people that we love into this conversation. Our friends, our families, even people from other races, um, into this conversation so that they're a little bit open, if nothing else, open to sitting down in loving kindness contemplation.
Ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
Hey mom, hey dad, hey partner.
Yeah.
Can we have a conversation about race with the understanding that it might be a little difficult?
Right.
Can we have a loving conversation about this? I think an invitation is an important first step. And if people say no, we have to meet people where they are.
Right. And accept, and maybe just keep trying a little bit until it happens, hopefully.
Keep trying, and yes, and if a person says no, they're not open to the conversation, maybe say, well, if you're not open to sharing your thoughts, are you open to hearing what I think and what I bring to the conversation?
Yeah.
And just taking it in.
Yeah.
Because not because I want to lecture you, and not because I want to tell you that you're a racist or a bad person, but because I want to share with you who I am.
Right. Wonderful. So, with respect to your meditation technique, one of the things that I loved, which I discovered when I meditated with you a couple of weeks ago, was that you meditate with your eyes open.
Yes.
I have them like semi-open. It wasn't like I was like over here, like looking at everything that was going on. So the first time I did it, I was like, what? I was a little skeptical.
Yeah.
But I actually realized that it became a little easier, much quicker for me to stay present and to concentrate on the breathing and on the words that you had just said. Like your particular directive was a little bit easier for me to stay with that when my eyes are open. So tell us more about that particular type of medication that you teach.
Sure. So the technique that I teach does have eyes open, and part of the reason for that is, as you say, it can be a little easier to stay present.
Yeah.
And also because the type of meditation that I teach is very much about being in the world. It's not about escaping our thoughts. It's not about leaving or going to some other place, although we do, as humans, we all have a natural tendency to run away in our minds and get distracted, and that's all completely fine. But we are in the world, and we go through our day, we walk places, we are in our apartments, we go to our jobs, we have our families, and we can't go through our lives with our eyes closed.
Right.
So this type of meditation is training in staying present with our eyes open so that we can take the training off the cushion or off the chair and into our lives and be present in our lives, with our families, in our jobs, in our homes, with our eyes open.
That's an amazing way to see it, is that we can take our meditation from our cushion. Because what's the point of saying I'm meditating? It's almost like when people say I go to church every week, but I don't practice what I'm getting. Like every spiritual practice is not only about you; it's about how do you interact with the world around you. Yeah, it's fabulous. So, can I ask you to lead us on a short meditation?
Sure. How long would you like to spend?
I don't know. Let's say 5 to 7 minutes. I'm ready to do longer, but I'm concerned about our viewers. So 5-7 minutes will be wonderful.
Okay, that sounds great. So wherever you are, if you're in a chair or sitting on the floor, doesn't matter. If you're in a chair, which most of us probably are,
right,
it's good to sit up straight and have our feet planted firmly on the floor.
Okay.
And try to have your back not resting on the chair, but upright. Mm-hmm. And in this technique, we practice having an upright back with a soft front, because we always have to remember to have our hearts open.
Awesome.
And receptive. So we're sitting there in our chair, our feet are planted firmly on the ground, our back is upright, our hearts are open, and have our hands just rested totally naturally on your knees or on your thighs, just wherever they fall. It's actually a pretty natural position. And the idea is to be comfortable, upright, and also relaxed. And as we discussed, our eyes are open. And eyes resting maybe 5 or so feet in front of us. on the floor or on a table. Just whatever's there is totally fine. We can just accept our environment exactly as it is. And then bring your attention very gently to your breathing. You don't have to have 100% laser focus on your breathing. It's much more relaxed than that. Very natural, resting our attention on our breathing. Thoughts may come and go, and that's important. We're not trying to get rid of our thoughts. We're all humans with active minds. That's a good thing. And most of us at some point will become distracted from our breathing, and we will realize that our minds are totally somewhere else. Maybe it's going to the grocery store, maybe it's a conflict we have had with a coworker, or something that's coming up in our families or our relationships. And if we find that we're just totally distracted, at some point we'll notice that. And that's a moment of awakeness. And that's a good thing. It's a reminder. And when we notice that, we can just come back very gently to our breathing. So maybe we could just sit together for another couple of minutes, just resting our attention on our breathing. Okay, how was that?
That was fantastic.
Great.
It's so fun because it's really very hard for you to fall asleep when your eye, obviously, when your eyes are semi-open. But there is, your brain is almost like in shutdown mode, almost when you're about to take a nap. Like that was my experience. That was my feeling. Like it took me maybe 15 seconds to get to a point where I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm asleep. Am I asleep? And it's like you said, you are aware of your own thoughts. But oh, it's so amazing. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Kara, tell us a little bit where we can find you. Ideally online, and if you have events going on and you post them on your website or on your social media platforms, we'd love to learn more from you.
That would be great. So I'm at 1000 Arms, all spelled out.
Yep.
.net.
Down here, you'll see it.
Awesome. And I'm at 1000 Arms on Twitter.
Okay.
And I also have a Facebook page, which is just Facebook 1000 Arms.
Okay.
So that would be great to connect that way. And I have a retreat coming up this August at the Garrison Institute, which is in upstate New York. It's a weekend-long retreat, and it will be specifically for white people who are interested in using meditation as a tool to address racism.
So there you have it, my white people and my friends that are not white, that have white people that you love and care about. Maybe you want to share this with your community. I'd love to also invite everybody that's listening to share this video with with other people, not just people of color, but white people, everybody that you know, because I think it's so important that this conversation happens not just among our own. You know, it's very easy for all Hispanic people to gather together and bitch and moan about what's happening, and then black people gather together, and then white people gather together. And it's important that we understand that there's people of all shapes and sizes and colors and creeds doing amazing work and trying to make this world a better world. So I thank you so much. I bow to you for the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for coming and to talking with us today and telling us about your work and how much we can impact even with the work that we do on a daily basis. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And if I could leave with one parting thought, it's that there's a phrase that came out of the civil rights movement in which civil rights leaders said to white people, "Go free your own people." And I take that very seriously. So thank you so much for this opportunity to present this and to talk with you and your audience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And now you have it. Make sure that if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Let's start a conversation, and in a kind, loving, kind, contemplative way. Let's talk about this as honestly as we possibly can. We'll be happy to answer your comments as soon as they come in. And make sure that you subscribe for more tips and a jolt of motivation for your healthy, happy, and beautiful life. See you soon. Bye. Learn the 3-step system that has helped thousands of women lose the flab, increase energy, sleep better, get regular, and lose weight. Get your free copy of the Sexy Body Reset today.
Show me what your body